Hello, hello, hello. Hey, what's up, Tobe? How you doing?
Hi, Steve. Doing great.
Fantastic. Thanks everybody for joining us for another Good to See My Friends podcast episode. And this week we got a good one. Personal favorite of ours, Point Break, coming up. Check it out. All right, so Point Break. This is a great one. This was
Oh,
this is kind of this is near and dear to our hearts.
oh man.
I don't this was kind of like the I don't know. Patrick Swayze had a couple of good movies under his belt, but I think this was kind of the breakthrough for Keanu. When do you remember seeing it? Do you remember seeing it in the theaters or? Oh
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. This was
91.
91. It was the summer of 91 when it came out. Just graduated from high school. The commercials were on all the time, 100% pure adrenaline. And then we was like, let's
Uh-huh.
go.
Yeah.
So I think I was trying to remember where I saw it, and I think this was a Roanoke Park special, a $2 special. Maybe after it had gone out of the main theaters and had gone to RP. That theater was so clutch, dude. You could see so many movies for so cheap, and so I would have been probably Roanoke Park. Loved it, loved it.
Yeah. I think I definitely remember what do you call it? The advertisements or the
The trailers.
trailers. There you go. Thank you.
Yeah.
I definitely remember those, but I was such a well. I partook in the devil's lettuce a lot back then, so I don't remember exactly if I saw it in the theaters or if but just remember seeing it in that time, and I
Uh-huh.
remember seeing it in VHS a lot. I think I
Okay.
probably have I owned it at some point, but it was so good. It was just like I think at the time too, because we were coming out of the '80s, which were kind of like it was this weird blend of conservatism with in politics, but then also the movies kind of had a little bit of that in it. Not really, but it had a little bit of the Reagan era and the Bush era in there. And then we're coming into the 90s, which is like, the end of the Bush era. And not to get political, I'm just saying at that
Right.
time. And I think that the reason why the remake, well, there was a lot of reasons why the remake didn't fare very well, was because I think that's just kind of was the norm. But at the time, I think the whole extreme kind of thing of like, skateboarding was kind of coming back in
Mm.
and you had the X Games coming up, and so surfing I think was the new thing to kind of latch onto, and it kind of mixed. It was kind of cool because it mixed like this philosophical kind of vibe with surfing, and that was just new at the time, and or at least movies like that. And I was just stoked. I love that from the get go. I just loved it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
those are and I think this is there's probably some movies that are a little like that from like our parents' era, but we hadn't seen really our
yeah, yeah,
stars of we knew Keanu Reeves from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I think
yeah.
that's pretty
That
much
was
all I knew him
yeah,
from, and Swayze had just done Roadhouse a
yeah.
couple years earlier,
That's another one we got to
and
do.
I was Ghost before that too. It might have been
Yeah,
before that. So
yeah. It was
Patrick's
the year before.
a
Yeah,
huge star at the time,
yeah.
and that's
And
why he's top billed in this movie.
well, yeah, and I think that's. Did you when you saw Keanu? I saw him in Parenthood, which came out I think the year before this.
Okay.
Let me see, Parenthood '89. No, so 3 years before, or 2 years before this.
Okay.
And I remember him. I never saw Bill and Ted in the theaters. It just
Oh
wasn't.
no.
It wasn't at the time. I was kind of a snob. I was just like, oh. But little did I know I was actually more like Bill and Ted than I was,
Yep. Right.
anything else. But I remember seeing him in Parenthood and thinking, oh wow, is this the guy from Bill and Ted? I couldn't. So I think for me, but I had no idea that he was going to kind of blow up, because after this it was Speed,
Yeah.
and then he did Dracula after this, and then he did Speed, and then it was just off to the races with him, which is kind of weird because Patrick Swayze, I first saw him in The Outsiders.
Sure. Yeah.
But then have you ever seen this movie Uncommon Valor? It was kind of that.
I don't think so.
It was with Gene Hackman and
Oh, yes, I did see that. Okay.
okay, yeah, where he goes back to Vietnam to find his son, and
Right.
the government won't help him, so he kind of hires all these mercenaries or like people in his son's unit to go back
Okay.
and help him, anyways. And that was the first time I saw him in that, and then I saw him in Red Dawn,
Mm-hmm.
and then The Outsiders, obviously. So it was kind of like the tale of two careers because Swayze kind of front loaded his career before this movie, whereas I think with Keanu Reeves, I think this movie kind of catapulted him to what he is today. I mean, he just started out. This was kind of the beginning. I mean, people could probably say Bill and Ted, but it was around the same time. So yeah, I never thought, or I mean, actually, I did think, but I mean, I just because after this, Swayze kind of just he didn't disappear. He was still working, but he
Right.
was in Donnie Darko,
Yeah.
The Turn of the Century, and
Turn of the century. Don't put it like that.
You remember?
You're right, though. You're right. You're right.
But until The Beast, did you ever see The Beast on A&E? That was I didn't see it. I remember at the time, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, it's really good," but I just never looked at it until probably last summer. I started watching episodes on YouTube. They just had random episodes of the first season, or I guess the only season.
What is it? A werewolf show?
No, it's he's like an FBI guy.
Okay.
And he gets a new partner. And the first episode is like training day. He takes his partner he's like giving him all these tasks to do. Hey, go do this and ask about this, and then we need to get this information for this, and the guy is like, what? And so he goes and he has to get this information from this guy, and he ends up like smoking crack with this guy. And so it's just like this thing where the FBI is actually after Patrick Swayze.
Okay.
Patrick
Wow.
Swayze
Shocking.
is Patrick Swayze is kind of like this rogue officer. But anyways, let's get back to Point Break.
Yes.
So Tobe, let's give us the rundown. Like, give us the tales. Notice I didn't say
sir.
beats.
I will give you the rundown here. Just a quick synopsis.
Yeah.
Point Break is written by Rick King and Peter Iliff, directed by the great Kathryn Bigelow, who would go on, at the time, she hadn't done a blockbuster movie, we would consider like a summer blockbuster type movie. She would, of course, go on to direct not Black Hawk Down, with Hurt Locker,
Zero Dark
30.
Yeah.
So she would win Oscars for her directing a little later on. But this is in 1991. It's actually loosely inspired by a book called Tapping the Source, which came out in 1984. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Well, I say loosely based because it's the book Tapping the Source is a person in Southern California infiltrates the Southern California surfing scene to try to solve a mystery.
Oh.
That's it.
Okay.
From there, and that book has been optioned. So I think they've tried to make other versions of it, but it's like a noir type book. It's like a crime noir, but it was written in 1984, and those are really the only similarities. And that was written by a guy named Kem Nunn. So you take a look for that. It actually sounds really interesting. Yeah. He's trying to find his missing sister, I believe, is the main character. All the names are all completely different, but he's got to infiltrate this surfing crew because he thinks that they know something about the whereabouts of his sister.
Nice. Okay.
As of course we just mentioned, it stars Patrick Swayze, Keanu Reeves, Gary Busey. Oh, this is my favorite Gary Busey role. Lori Petty, and of course, and John C. McGinley, who you and I just talked about recently from Office Space, who plays a completely different type of character. He plays the boss, Ben Harp. And then you have a bunch of other, you wouldn't call them cameos. Everybody remember Anthony Kiedis is in the, he plays a character called Tone. And then you've got some others uncredited people who, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because I'll give away my my Game 6 Clay Thompson award if I say anymore. But it was filmed in the summer of 1990, came out in the summer of 1991. It's a 2 hour and 2 minute runtime, and boy, it does not feel like 2 hours and 2 minutes. It's so quickly paced that it really flies by, and it's just a real joy from beginning to end. There's really no lulls in this movie, in my opinion, where you're just you think 2 hour action movies sometimes
Mhm.
just it's got everything. Car
Yeah.
chases. Obviously, surfing is a big part of it. It really shows how big surfing was getting at the time. Skydiving, bank robberies. It's really got it all. It had a huge budget, $24 million
Oh
at the
wow.
time, which
Okay.
is a huge budget.
Yeah.
And it made 43 million in the U.S. and Canada in the theater, and worldwide made $83 million in the theater. So considered a box office hit in
Yeah.
that respect.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's filmed mostly in Los Angeles. There's some scenes filmed in Oregon, and there's one skydiving scene that's filmed in Utah. But otherwise, right here on the West Coast.
Nice.
So there you go. There's your little backstory.
Nice. Thanks, Tobe.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
That's always been a great kind of, I guess, selling point of it is all the action that's in it. What makes it, I think, really well paced, because you left out one thing is a lot of shootouts too.
Oh
Well, not
man,
a
yeah, a
lot,
lot
but
of
there's a couple
lot
shootouts
of
in it.
shoot. That's a good
Yeah.
point. The
But
tagline was 100% pure adrenaline was at the top of the poster, so it really kind of lets you know what you're getting into.
yeah, yeah,
You know, I don't know if you're, in a lot of these movies like this, where it's just an action and we're just going to show you a bunch of fun things that people do. It's just cool action scene to cool action scene, and there's really no plot.
yeah,
This holds up.
yeah,
We're going
yeah,
back and watching a movie from '91, so that's 30, almost 34 years ago. Where sometimes you go back and watch those early '90s action movies, and they're really dated. This
yeah,
is not dated at all. I mean, there's a couple things, go home and I'll beep you,
yeah.
little things that you can get past. But otherwise, it's, you're not missing that. We're only watching it for the surfing part, or I'm only
Right,
watching it for the
right,
skydiving. I'm only
right.
watching it for the crime scenes. Yeah, if you haven't watched this, I recommend it. I recommend going back and rewatching it or watching this. And if you've only seen the remake that came out in like 2017, so shame on you, A, and B, go back and watch the original. You're gonna wish you had watched it years and years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't even, I have to just, you said it all right there. I have no other words to kind of describe it. I think for me, it's always been, we always talk about on this channel the kind of the ability to watch these movies, and you have it in the background or you're doing whatever you're doing. You can always watch it at any time. But I think for this one, and there's a few other movies, but especially this one, if it's on, like I'm not doing anything else. It doesn't
That's
matter
right.
what I am doing. I'm gonna watch the rest of this, just because the performances too are just. It's kind of like, we were last week we were talking about Highlander, and we kind of got the cheesiness of it. And I'm not going to say the acting is cheesy, but it's kind of a little over the top, just because of the kind of themes that they're talking about. But then you have Swayze coming in with his kind of philosophical vibe, and it
Oh
kind of
yes.
evens out, and it evens the stuff out, because you have this thing of Swayze being this kind of Zen type of guy. His name is Bodhi. And then you have this like kind of violence, but violence in the movie of like bank robbers and fighting, and swearing and all this other stuff. So it's just a joy. It's just like you said, it's a joy. It's amazing. I love it. I'll
Yeah.
recommend it to anybody. And I think right now, is this a good time to talk about Point Break Live?
Sure.
Because I was thinking about getting a hold of John Maslin, my old friend from school, but he's doing these like honky tonks back in Philly, or I don't know where, Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh. So I think he's busy with that today. He has one tonight. But I eventually want to get him on the show. But
It would have been so great to get him on this one because I
yeah,
sent you the
dude.
picture
Yeah, oh yeah, which I'll
from,
put up. I'll
and
put up in the
he's
edit. Yeah, and so Point Break Live was this thing. I don't know if it started in L.A., but it was in San Francisco when I was in school. So I was in school from '09 to 14. So in my first year of school, I met these people at my school, and they told me, hey, Point Break, we do this thing on the week, Fridays and Saturdays, called Point Break Live, which probably lots. I don't know if anybody's heard of it, but I feel like a lot of people should have heard of this, which is they put on the whole.
Google it. Google it if
Yeah,
you haven't.
Google
There's
it.
a Wikipedia page about it. Yeah.
And which they would do the whole movie, but like done really cheaply. Like, so for the ocean, they have a blow up swimming pool. And they have these harnesses where they'll fly you, on the stage and stuff for the skydiving scenes. And they pick a Johnny Utah for every show. They pick a new one, and they have a cue card girl. They have all his lines on cue cards, and they have a girl that pulls them and pushes them around and tells them where to go, and then read this.
Yeah.
And you read the lines. It's
Yeah.
kind of like this thing of, well, because they do this thing at the beginning where they say, well, if we saw Keanu Reeves do this, we think anybody can do this.
Right.
So in order to prove that point, they would just pick a guy from each show. And Toby, on his
Yeah.
birthday, we brought him down to see the Point Break live show, and our friend here at the Gonna See My Friends podcast co-host was picked, and it was
Guess who got picked, baby?
Yeah, it was a great time by all. So tell us a little bit about that, Toby.
Yeah. So knowing that we had a big group with us, probably 10 or more, I want to say, that went down there. And it was at the IMAX theater, but it was in a movie theater that was set up as if there was going to be a play.
Yeah.
And there's a stage, and
it was at the Metreon. Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, the Metreon. That's right. Okay.
So the Metreon, for those that don't know, the Metreon is like this shopping center with this big IMAX theater in it. But it also had like stores, like food stores and little boutiques. And they had this little side room where they had like a stage. Continue.
So there's probably 15 of us that go down there. And, I was told, before we go down, you were telling me, so this is my group from the Academy of Art. Some of my classmates were all in school together, and they acted out. And you weren't part of the troupe, but you were part of the crew, I want to say. You had your camera. You were taking
I just
pictures.
Knew everybody.
You were backstage with everybody.
Yeah.
Right. And they said, everybody's we have all the different players from the movie, but we're going to pick an audience member to be Johnny Utah. And so before we all get down there, and there's probably, I want to say 50 or 60 people in this little theater. There was a lot more than I was anticipating. And they say, a woman comes out and she says, "Hi, my name's Kathryn Bigelow. I was the director of Point Break." Many of you might not know that I was the director of Point Break. And me not knowing who Kathryn Bigelow at the time, completely believed her. I was like, no kidding. Wow, that's rad. And I'm sitting there in like the second or third row, and everybody there that came with us were like, you're going to go up there and you're going to be one of the people that tries out for it, and we're going to cheer for you, and hopefully that you get up there. So I knew going in that there was a pretty good percentage that I would get picked. But 15 people go up on stage that volunteer to be Johnny Utah. I'm standing up there and I'm in this line. I'm about 10th down the row. And they say, now we're going to hold auditions. And the line that you have to say is, "I am an FBI agent." And the audience will cheer for each person. And the person who gets the most cheers will pick as Johnny Utah. And they were saying that, sometimes they'll volunteer somebody who's never seen the movie before. Because, again, the idea is you can either know this movie by heart like I did, or you can and they've picked people for both. They've had people up there and there's YouTube videos of this as well. You guys, seriously, after this, watch some of it. Some of the funniest ones are where the person doesn't know this movie at all. Because this is like 2010 that we're up there. So the movie's been out almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And so, at this point, if you haven't seen it, probably not going to see it. And how random is this? Point Break Live? What?
Yeah.
So of course I get picked because I say the line exactly like it's exactly the same, "I am an FBI agent," and the place goes nuts, and I'm like, I got this. So then I'm Johnny Utah for the thing, and I'll be honest, I want to go see it live and not get picked because you guys were dying. I was looking at you guys, and you're all looking at me, and everyone is hysterically laughing during this whole thing. And like Steve was just saying, the water parts are there's a pool full of water where the surfing part, they're throwing water around, and everybody's like a Gallagher show almost, where everybody in the first few rows is getting drenched. So, you know, bring it like a garbage bag. You have to kind of know ahead of time. We should probably bring some trash bags or something. You guys were getting doused with water and whatever else was going on. And they don't just keep it to the stage like during the car chase scenes and the foot chase scenes. They're running around the whole theater and pushing people, the audience members out of the way. It was freaking wild, man. I thought it was absolutely hilarious because I know, and I've got the cue cards in front of me, but I was paying attention a little bit lower left hand side, but I didn't need them. I knew the lines. I didn't need them at all. I knew it was coming up, and I wanted to say I'm exactly like Keanu does in the movie, and people were just like, this is just like watching the movie.
Yeah.
So we had that intermission halfway through, and they put me in this wetsuit because we're about to go skydiving. It's going to get to the skydiving scene. And they put me in like a woman's medium wetsuit, and I'm like 215 pounds trying to fit into a 50-pound bag. And it wouldn't zip up in the back at all. And I'm basically got my boxers on under this, and they're trying to zip me up. And the guys are the whole crew, all the guys that played the ex-presidents and the guy who played Pappas. That guy who played Pappas was amazing. I don't know who he was, but he was crack. I couldn't stop laughing because of how good the guy who played Pappas was. Pappas is my favorite character in this movie.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he was playing it so over the top. And the 4 ex-presidents, surfers, Bodhi, and the crew were amazing. They all had the long hair. And oh my God, it was so well done. And not knowing what I was getting into before that and being a part of it was truly a really fun experience. And
Dude, yes.
I don't know if they still do it. I think John posted on Facebook not that long ago that I think he may have reposted it. And John, if you watch this, you could let us know. But I think they still do it.
Yeah.
It like grew in popular. It was really popular in like the early 2010s. And then it was coming back when the new Point Break came out. They kind of relaunched it in LA or like right around 2020 before the pandemic. It probably didn't survive the pandemic, but.
Well, they did. They changed it to, I think in like 2013 or 14. No, wait, 14, they were still doing Point Break. I think for a little while there, they changed it to Top Gun Live, and they were doing.
Oh, did
Top
they
Gun.
really?
Yeah, and they may have turned it back. I don't know. I remember the guy that ran it. He was a really cool guy, and yeah, and he was the one that was kind of putting these on. But it was getting. I remember when I would go in 14 when I was down in LA doing it. It was getting really hard to find venues that would let us do it, and then when we would do it, it would still be full of people, and they would say the lines with you, and it was just kind of thing. So, but yeah,
I mean, they've said that like Lori Petty went to one in Los Angeles. I think Gary Busey may have gone to one and actually got up and played the role of Pappas.
Yeah.
So they, the stars of this movie heard about. I mean, this wasn't an underground thing. This was,
it got pretty big,
underground, but it's a new kind of show. It's like it's an interactive show. Everybody, you're coming out of there drenched with water, and I think there was whipped cream involved at some point. I don't remember what it was, but I got away pretty well. I was obviously wet from having the wetsuit on, and them throwing buckets of water on us and all of that. But the crowd, I think, got the brunt of the punishment from the actors.
Well, I think because at about 13 or 14, they moved it to the DNA Lounge in San Francisco, which was a little bigger, and it had these like tiers, it had like walkways in the back, so they could do a lot of other things. And
did they put you on a guy wire? I mean, we were suspended, and they were pushing us during the skydiving scene, the first skydiving scene, where are we going to jump or jerk off? Where he first learns how to skydive. And someone took that great picture that I posted to Facebook back in. I posted that in 2010, so it must have been 2009 that we went. It's a long time ago, but we'll put that up in the on the Instagram and somehow on this feed. I couldn't believe. I'm like, there's probably a photo of me in this. It's kind of hard to see because it was so dark in the theater. But
You got the VHS copy of it too, right? Because
I
they
did get a
film it.
VHS copy of it. Oh my
Yeah.
God, where
Yeah.
is that? Wow.
You
Okay.
should digitize that.
Oh my, if I
That
can
would be
find it,
fun.
dude. I forgot about that. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, yeah. So that was quite the experience. That was kind of like the love of this movie, and
Mhm.
you're able to kind of make it tangible in some way, because you're able to experience it and in a low budget way, but it was fun. It was just a great
Super
time.
low budget way.
Yeah.
I mean, we were drinking PBRs and, I think it was like $15 or something like that.
Yeah.
And oh my God, I'm just thinking every time I think about it, I'm like, God, it was like embarrassing at first. And then I got into it because I was like,
oh
they
yeah,
put
I
me
can
in
tell.
the sweatsuit and I'm in this thing just, and it's stretched so tight that like you can see my skin through the
Yeah,
the
didn't it
wetsuit.
rip? It ripped like on the side.
Oh,
or
it
something.
probably. I destroyed that thing. They were
Yeah.
not expecting a 200-pound guy. It was the smart. It's the only one we got, man. I'm like, I guess we're gonna have to make this work. They're feeding me shots of tequila. They're like, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. I'm like, oh my God, this is insane, you guys.
Shit. All right. Well, good. And that's something that maybe we can find that tape or something. I don't know.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Anyways, so getting back on the movie end of this starts out like just like kind of, I think it's the start of a kind of a style of movie that was like, because eventually Heat, and what was that, 95, kind of starts out the same. It's just a crime spree, and it's got to be stopped. And we're introduced to Keanu Reeves, and what's the boss's name again?
Harp.
Harp. We get introduced to Keanu, and Harp gives him a lashing right away.
Yep. He sets him straight. Like this is we don't drink, we don't smoke.
Yeah. I take the skin off chicken.
Yeah, and we're the best. This is a bank robbery capital of the U.S. was Los Angeles, and at the time that was actually true. Those stats that he's throwing out, we caught over 1,000 of them. That was actually true. Those were true numbers from 1990.
Yeah,
that at the time bank robbery was a big deal. We can talk more about that a little bit later.
Yeah. And so then it's all a wonder, I think. There's a little like behind the scenes interviews in the Apple movie thing that I got.
Okay.
And McGinley's saying that it took him forever to get that shot just because camera wasn't working one time, or the extras were doing something that they shouldn't have, or I was flubbing a line, or Keanu was flubbing a line. So and if you watch that shot, it looks like a really hard shot because it's just a one take, following them around desks, down hallways.
Oh, that tracking shot in the beginning.
Yeah.
That's that's funny. And he's talking fast, and there's a lot of information coming at you right at the beginning. You're getting a lot of backstory. It's so quickly paced, this movie.
Yeah.
It's shocking to see that it's 2 hours long because it's really, really quickly paced. It's a great point. And he was a fairly young actor at the time. You can tell how young he is, and somehow he's the ASAC of the whole office, right?
Yeah.
And he's got to be 31 or 32 at the time. So,
I think, and Keanu was 25.
Yeah.
And we see him at the firing range. You got 100. Yeah.
Right. Shoulder rolls and so great. Yeah.
Shotgun blasts and and then we get the intro with Angelo Pappas, and
I love this so much.
Yeah, and they're trying to get bricks off the bottom of a swimming pool, I suppose. And and then he comes in. Gary Busey, I think it's one of his best roles. I think Lethal Weapon, and then this one. I mean, he was on a roll, I think.
Well, don't forget that he basically saves Silver Bullet.
Oh yeah.
He's the most interesting, and he's pretty much the best. He's far and away the best actor in that movie. But here he's kind of toe to toe. He doesn't have any scenes with Patrick Swayze, but they're kind of toe to toe with each other. And you have this young FBI agent whose first day on the job, he's getting introduced to bank robbery, and he gets introduced to his new partner who's been in the, I've been an agent for 22 years, fired my weapon in the over 20 times. I have no idea what fetching 2 bricks off the bottom of a pool does for an FBI agent. And so he's kind of this old, he's kind of the hard-boiled cop, and he's hilarious, and he's, Johnny Unitas, some quarterback, but some blue flamer special, some quarterback punk.
And then we go into the ex-presidents doing a heist, and we get introduced to who they are.
We see how
they don't show their face.
Disciplined they are.
Yeah,
we don't. Yeah, we
they
get
don't
to
go
see
to the vault.
These guys are in and out.
90 seconds.
In and out. Yeah, in and out in 90 seconds.
That's their MO.
They're gone. And there's a really nice. Kathryn Bigelow does a really nice thing where, as one of the ex-presidents is running out the door, and he bends over and he flashes his butt. It says "thank you" across his butt, right, in a Sharpie.
That was one of my trivia questions.
Oh, damn. Okay.
No, it's fine. You got it. I have lots. I'm just going to choose 3, but I have lots. So
okay, good. And then the dissolve from him to then it rewinding, and then them running out to the security footage of the FBI agents in the bank watching the replay of the crime. I thought was really, really well done.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say about it too. Was that it was kind of and this is a reach probably, but it made me think about the scene in Interstellar where the daughter is talking to Matthew McConaughey, and he's crying and stuff, and she goes, "You son of a bit," whatever, and she turns off the thing, and it turns off, but then it cuts to her thing, and she's like just leaving the message. Not in any kind of the same context, but just in the kind of what's the word?
Ingenuity?
Yeah, of composing a shot.
Maybe Christopher Nolan stole that from Kathryn Bigelow.
You never know. You never know. So then we get the FBI's at the bank, after the bank, and then it's oh no, totally awesome, dude.
The other FBI agents are giving Pappas a hard time because he's told them what his theory is on this. He's like, they've robbed 27 banks. They've never been caught. They're in and out in 90 seconds. And they're the best I've ever seen in all this. Yeah. And they give him a hard time. Hang 10, Pappas. And he's like, what are they talking about?
Yeah. And then Keanu gets volunteers them to check out the dump car, the car they dumped.
Yeah, the drop car.
Yeah, the drop car. There you go. And then they go up to the thing, and Pappas is like, hey, let me know if you find
Jimmy Hoffa. Are you finished, Mr. Wizard? This movie, you guys, is got all the action in the world. There's tons and tons of action, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
There's I laugh out loud. I mean, for us especially, because you and I, as we were first getting to know each other all those years ago at work, this is one of those where there's so many quotable lines where we're just going to be doing it through this whole podcast anyway, because the stuff that we still say to this day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I've got a whole page of just quotes.
Yeah.
Every time there was one that went by, I put it in my notes, and I got a full page of just the notes. We're not going to go through them all, but you guys, if you like quotable movies, put this on your list of quotable movies.
So then, in a fit of rage or frustration, because Pappas is like, let's get out of here. It's 7:30, man. He's just like, Keanu knows that he has to get it out of him, what he knows, And so he kind of provokes him, and maybe you should get a nighttime security job, tell Nom stories. And Pappas explodes, and he goes, tell me this theory of yours, and we go get these guys.
Yeah.
Which is that he thinks that they're surfers. And so that's the whole plot point number one.
Yeah. What do you mean they're surfers? Nobody else believes Pappas because they think he's they're giving him a hard time about and he's like it's right in our face. It's right in our face. And then they're again a freeze frame on the butt shot again.
This dude
right in our face. Look at the tan line on this guy. Like, well, of course they're sir.
Well, this dude, I was thinking, watching it the 3 times that I watched it this week, was like, the dude, whoever played that guy, is like, his ass is now, in this movie forever. And that's the main plot point. Look at this, and they close up. Look at that. And anyways, yeah, it's hilarious. So
Unless you watch it for free on YouTube, then they blur the butt.
yeah, that's
Oh.
what this morning I kind of went over it just to go over it, and yeah, they
I'm watching the free version. Get out of here.
so then so Keanu buys it, the
Yeah.
sex wax and all that. So then they go and they buy the surfboard, which is another quotable scene. I think they do it in Point Break Live, which is surfing's and I should have written it
The
down.
kid that worked at the
Yeah.
surf shop's like 14 years old.
Yeah.
And he's a grizzled veteran at surfing. He's all, changed your life, man. And he's like, what? He's all, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And so they go and buys a surfboard. Pappas, what am I doing? These are for rubber kids that don't even shave yet, or rubber people that don't even shave yet. And then he tries to learn how to surf and, falling off.
Well, Pappas is right. Pappas is right. He's like, he's been watching the surfers at this point, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, you can't just walk around with this thing under your arm. You got to get out there with them. These guys talk their own language. They've got like a society out there. And you're just going to go around and walk around like you're, Steve Buscemi, how do you do, fellow kids? Isn't going to work. And this is, dude, you got to be a surfer. And he's like, the FBI's going to pay me to surf. And he's like, well, it's either you and me out there on the board. How hard could it be?
Yeah. You're an athlete. Balance, yeah.
It's incredibly hard.
So he's learning how to surf, and then he almost drowns. But Lori Petty, what's it? Petty?
Yeah.
Tyler. Her name's Tyler.
Tyler
kind of saves him. And the one thing that we don't talk about, or that's not often talked about in this movie, is the soundtrack.
Oh my God.
And the early 90s was this really weird. This is right before Nirvana. And so you still have, Nirvana comes out this year, but this is before the big breakout of Nirvana. So you have these hair bands and this kind of LA sound, which is kind of the whole nah, 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 nah. Yep. Badass, and they have the long hair and it's
glam rock
styled. Baby. Yeah. And so there's a few good bands do that. I think LA Guns is on the soundtrack. But during this time when he's, getting saved, Concrete Blonde's playing in the background. I Want You. It's the name of the song.
It's a nice montage song.
Yeah.
It's a perfect montage song for her teaching him how to surf. Absolutely.
And then this band Wire Train, I Will Not Fall, starts playing too. I will not.
That's it, baby. Yeah, that's the one.
And so, we go on and what I don't mean to get ahead of myself.
Well, no, and hang on. She points out that they see this dude ripping it up. And
I'm missing a page. Yeah.
And Utah's looking at Bodhi out there ripping it up. She looks over at him and she's like, "That's Bodhi." They call him the Bodhisattva. They do not, in fact, call him the Bodhisattva, which is really kind of a strange thing to say in the movie. I don't know why that's in there. It's always kind of bugged me because at no point does anybody refer to him as that. And if you were wondering what that is, in Buddhism, striving to become enlightened and achieve Buddhahood is what Bodhisattva means.
Yeah.
There you go.
And Steely Dan wrote a song called Bodhisattva. So yeah, I'm missing a page of notes here. So that's where I can't. Anyway, sorry, we'll edit this out. Yeah, do you have it? So then, okay. So
so they go to they play football on the beach.
Yeah.
And they have this game of tackle football, big, two guys, and Bodhi recognizes Utah as the quarterback for the Ohio State Buckeyes, number 9.
Yeah.
And he'd played in the Rose Bowl about 3 years earlier. And the rest of the crew, Roach and Nathaniel and
Gromit,
they're all, oh man, Johnny Utah, oh, so sorry, man, so sorry. So now he's kind of like, they're just like, whoa,
now he's part of the gang.
Yeah, he's in.
Yeah.
And he goes back to work with the surfboard under his arm, and Harp is furious. And it's one of my favorite monologues, I think, of all time. And I memorized it even back then. And if you'll just indulge me for a second.
Let's hear it.
You see the security footage of Utah trying to get through the office, clunking around, trying to get this 11-foot surfboard into this office. And it cuts to Harp going, "Special Agent Utah, This is not some job flipping burgers down at the drive-in. Yes, the surfboard bothers me. Yes, your approach to the whole goddamn case bothers me. And yes, you bother me. I love it. I just love John McGinley is so good as this, just so pissed off at everything that these guys are doing. These guys are going to get, he's got probably a Pepto Bismol on his desk. These guys are going to make me to an early grave, and he's in charge. And these guys, what did Pappas? I can't believe you talked me into this.
Well,
and
that's
Pappas,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Pappas he's like, why do you got to bring the surfboard in here? And he's like, dude, you're getting us in trouble. He's like, it's too long. The windows won't roll up. I'm like, dude,
I can't lock my car.
I unlocked it.
Well, that's the beauty of this movie, I think, for me, is that there's all these tropes. You have bank robbery, you have like the surfer thing, but the whole experience of this movie. I mean, then you have the angry lieutenant or the angry boss, like you were just saying. But it flows, and the joy of this movie kind of it rises above all that stuff. So even though you see all the stuff that you see in other movies, and you think, oh, okay, yeah, they're doing this thing, and that doesn't matter, because this thing is just the way it's directed, the way it's acted, the way maybe it's even written. It just kind
of entertaining.
Yeah, it's just
and you just listed those things off, and I've seen this movie. Couldn't even begin to tell you how many times I've been in the play.
Yeah.
And I don't think I put that together, that it's kind of formulaic in that respect. There's a love interest.
Yeah.
There's a great, there's good tunes, kicking tunes going on under there. There's not oldies that they're playing. These are like kind of modern songs.
Yeah.
And you're right. Never really, I just watch it because it's kind of, I consider it a standalone, but the more you're pointing things out, I'm like,
yeah, I mean, you don't even think about those things.
No, you don't,
because you're in it with them, and you're like, oh, this is so cool, this is so fun. And then
you believe Bodhi is he's this really gregarious guy, inviting people in. He's the coolest guy in town, and yet he's okay with you. Come on in. Yeah, it's so cool in that. And I think another thing that they do real well is when they say, Harp's like, you guys, for the last 2 weeks, you two have produced exactly squad. And meanwhile, the ex-presidents have robbed 2 more banks.
Yeah.
So now you get this little backstory where, like, they're way behind, dude. Yeah. These guys are, they're just running wreckshot over the town, and these guys are not going to get stopped. And Pappas goes, it's 28 banks, and what do we have? 1 fucking hair.
Oh, 1 hair, yeah.
And he's like, that's it, because the security guard pulled ponytail.
Yeah.
Pulled LBJ's ponytail, I think he said, or something, Nixon's ponytail or something like that. And he got 1 hair, and then you got a soil sample. And that's where the sex wax comes in. Or the sex wax was early, but he tells him that they run an analysis on the hair.
With the 3D graphics and everything.
They do. They got gas chromatographs and the whole works in this place. And I think it's really, and this is for 1990, this is some CSI stuff here, man. They're going forensic files on them. And they figure out that all these different levels of toxins that they find in this hair could mean, if we can figure out, there's always closing the beaches because of oil spills and all that. Not so much at the time, but at the time, this was true.
Yeah.
You've got all these, you got the nuclear power plant that's right there, and not that they're dumping chemicals, but it was true. The water was nasty back then. It's much better now. But we do this at our work too. We find just 30 seconds to figure out where certain cosmetic products are getting their talc from, for talcum powder products.
Yeah,
we'll run spectralysis and run it through a gas chromatograph and figure out what type of what's in all this, and we could figure out what talc deposit in the world, what talc mine is coming from somewhere in the world.
Wow!
By the different levels of all these things. So what they're doing is actually, especially in 1991, is actually really, really smart.
Yeah.
And this is the key that gets them on the case for the ex-presidents, because if they can figure out what break that is that they're which beach they're surfing, then that's the one where, I mean,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? You can't just go out and what are you going to surf all the whole coastline of Los Angeles?
There's
So
cliffs
this
on
brother,
both sides.
you're right. They figure out what he's like, nice Point Break. And by the way, they do say the title of the movie and how it's just all boom, drink for saying the title of the movie.
But that's yeah, that's the and wait, so yeah, and is that when he gets into the fight with Kiedis and Warchild and
yeah, Bunker and all
Bunker,
them, the Death Squad. So they go to that Point Break to figure out which one it is, and they figure out which Point Break it is. Long surfable rides, and he goes out there and gets his butt kicked. Right?
Stay off my wave.
Right. They're gonna tell him, oh, this is where you're gonna tell me like yuppies like me shouldn't, go back to the valley.
That would be a waste of time.
Right. And Anthony Kiedis is so great. And Anthony Kiedis is really at the height of his powers with Red Hot Chili Peppers, where everyone's like, there he is, dude.
Well, they had rehearsals on the weekends for that fight scene, and he missed all of them. So that's why he only gets that one shot, and then he gets thrown out of the group, and then he runs in. Yeah, so because they had to choreograph all that fight stuff. And,
okay,
yeah,
interesting. And so Bodhi comes to the rescue. Bodhi's there,
yeah,
at the beach.
We're just
which Utah doesn't put together,
right?
What's Bodhi doing there?
Yeah, I never thought of that. Yeah,
there's this 4 guys. And Pappas has said, you're looking for 4 guys. It's going to be a group within a group. You're going to know it when you see it. And so here's these 4 guys that are just raising hell, driving all the They follow them. They follow him to Pappas and Utah follow him. And, Pappas is pissed because Utah gets in a fight and leaves his piece and shield behind.
Yeah.
And so he comes running, screaming down to the beach. You see somebody with a car stereo? That's kind of a nice little cover there.
Yeah, it was really nice. That was quick thinking because I remember thinking... Like I remember thinking, sorry, I burped.
Can't see these
back in the 90s.
Together.
Well, yeah. So back in the 90s, I was like, well, why did he say that? Why didn't he just go like, hey, Utah, this is, and then I was like, oh, that's why I'm slow. So yeah. Anyway.
He was thinking on his feet there, and they're all, no, but there's some guys back there that we just kicked their ass, and you may want to check with them, right? Oh, that was pretty good. And so Pappas is pissed. And
they follow them. And then he's like, oh, yeah, did postdoctoral work at Chino. I like it. Yeah.
They think these are the guys. They're fitting the T.
Yeah.
And so let's stake this place out. Meanwhile, I got to go. Bodhi invited me to his house party tonight. So he goes to house party with Tyler. And then they go night surfing.
And the quotable part of this scene or this section is you can't just call timeout.
That's right.
Walk right in when you don't like what things are going. And just like that, the ultimate, if you want to, what the ultimate, what is it?
It says this is young Gromit. That's this. You can't just call timeout and stroll into the beach if you don't like the way things are going.
Well, what does Swayze say? He goes, if you want the ultimate,
if you want the ultimate, you got to pay the ultimate price.
There you go. Yeah. And that's when Keanu was like, what's the biggest? Waimea? Ridden? And then they start busting out beaches, and Swayze's like, Bells Beach.
Bells Beach, Australia.
Yeah.
No way, Bells is bigger than Waimea, bro.
But then after that, they go night surfing. And then they make Keanu and Tyler kind of hit it off and make it over the beach. And he wakes up late.
Yeah, he wakes up late in the morning on the beach. Nice little touch. That's you wouldn't do that up here in the North Coast, but you could probably get away with it down there. Right? I think
yeah. And he's late to his own, Late to his
own bus.
What a flake.
A flake. And Pappas is so good at running interference. He's going to walk up to the door, but he's going to be looking like he's missing his dog. Scooby! Meanwhile, as he's running around, you always seen a dog? You lost one? Nah, man. And he's knocking on the door. The FBI's got the house surrounded. Keanu looks through his little mirror and he sees these guys pulling out an arsenal.
Yeah. And
he's like, you got to tell. that tell Pappas to be careful. You pull him out. Don't let him pull his badge.
But the next door neighbor,
nobody can hear him because the lawnmower's running.
That next door neighbor, man. What a time. What are you doing? Like 8 a.m?
I know, right?
God damn it.
Got to get an early jump on that grass.
Well, see, what I like to do the night before is put a lot of fertilizer in there and in the early morning. Yeah, whatever. Anyways, so yeah, we get this little thing of like he almost gets his face gnawed off. Well, first of all, they have the shootout in the house.
In the house,
Kiedis loses his foot basically.
Yep, he's freaking out. Kiedis is so good in that because he's kind of like a game over man kind of character in that, you know.
Chill out, man.
He's like, come on, chill out, man. It's gonna be fine. It's nothing. It's not nothing. And these guys are all just like so like, no, hide the stuff.
Yeah,
and we
So then they all go in and they have a shootout in that little tiny little house in like a couple of rooms, and Keanu takes War Child. Was it War Child? Yeah, it takes War Child, and they fall out the window, and they're fighting around the lawn mowing machine, and Keanu gets his face mashed up, man.
It's pretty stressful right there, and you're kind of wondering, boy, this is not a good way to go, having your face hit a freaking running lawnmower. So,
and my mind goes to dark places of like, what if that was real and it really happened? God, what a way to go. Anyway, so then
it's a yucky part. It's definitely a yucky part. And it turns out that they arrest the guys who are still alive after this. And Harp walks in, and Tom Sizemore's character comes in, Dietz, who's a DEA agent. Undercover. And he's in deep cover for the last 3 months. These guys are selling meth, as it turns out. They're not the bank robbers, because how can they be robbing this bank on this day when they were in Fort Lauderdale on that day? So whoops-a-daisies. And we go from Utah, and things are going great for Utah. Yeah. He's learning to surf. He's got this new buddy, this really cool buddy. He's now got a girlfriend. I mean, he's part of a surf gang on this. He's part of a surf. He's like, this is cool, man. And then he's in trouble, right? Yeah. So then he sees over from scratch.
Yeah. Well, then he sees he's surfing. He's going out for a surf. They wake him up. Hey, let's go. Mm-hmm. And then they go in one morning, and then one of the surfers moons the beach, I guess.
Yep.
And then he moons. And then he realizes they're ghosts, and that this is the gang. This is the people that are robbing the banks.
Now we got him. And I'm pretty sure you're not 100% sure. I mean, it's not shown to us, the audience, either. I mean, you can hear Patrick Swayze's voice, but they don't, come out and they don't show us who the ex-presidents are. Right. So at this point, for the audience, we don't know who the ex-presidents are. We really don't. So.
And so then he follows them. He goes here. He goes there. He goes to Tower Records, buys some CDs. He goes to Patrick's Roadhouse. Roadhouse.
Yeah, Patrick's Roadhouse. That's a.
Yeah. So then
nice
he tails
touch
him. And then he tails them to a bank in which he watches them case it. And then so they're sitting,
or they're cashing a check.
Yeah. So they're sitting there themselves. They go the next morning to watch the bank. And another famous line, which, the Point Break Live had T-shirts made of this, which was, Utah, give me 2.
So good. That's probably the most famous line of the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
So famous, in fact, that we said that so frequently. Whenever anybody would get up to get another drink out of the refrigerator, if somebody like at my apartment in the later 90s, where I'm living with my roommate Rob, I get a cat, and it was really hard for me to name cats because I wouldn't just get a cat and go, okay, this one's going to be called Rocky, or this one's So I had this cat for a couple weeks, and we still hadn't landed on a name. But whenever he or I would get up, or my brother would come over, Troy was real big on this too. He's still to this day. If he sees I'm going to the ice chest or going to the Utah, that's all you have to say is Utah. Give me 2. and so we have this cat, and Rob's all, well, what about Utah?
Yeah.
And I'm like, boom. So if I may, real quick. found this picture from
Oh,
those days of me in Utah.
look
And
at
here's our
that.
cat from 1998, 99. There's my boy Utah. He was a good boy. Look at that. Look at that face.
Oh,
Look
a
at that face.
hooligan.
Yeah, and I look like I'm going to get into a Donnybrook with a shillelagh. This guy. I look like I'm shipping up to Boston in this photo.
Either that or you're on the north side of England, or the north part of England. Going to see the Manchester United. I can't do that.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah. The boys are going to take the pitch.
So then, let's see. Yeah. So shootout.
So they're on the presidents. But
Yeah.
they
So that
Pappas is reading freaking Calvin and Hobbes, and Utah's going to get two
meatball
meatball
sandwiches.
and a tuna on wheat for $7.
Yeah.
Don't ask me how that worked out, but
Yeah.
don't get
But
me
then,
started.
they in the midst of them doing all this, they actually rob another bank.
You see the presidents run in,
Yeah.
rob the bank.
Behind Keanu while he's
They
ordering.
come out, and the car chase ensues.
Yeah.
Great car chase. And this car chase reminded me a little bit of Bullet, and I don't know if she did this on purpose.
Probably.
But the Bullet car chase was really famous because of how many hubcaps
Oh yeah.
were lost. There was like 7 hubcaps off the same vehicle that were lost in that the most famous car chase of all time in Bullet. But if you watch, there's like the same car loses 7 hubcaps. I think in this one, the hubcap flies off. You see it roll on by, and then on the next turn, the hubcap is back on. So
Yeah.
not a whole lot of hubcaps in the world anymore. But this is probably one of the reasons why we got rid of hubcaps.
Yeah.
But great car chase. The presidents ditched their car at a gas station, lighted on fire. Swayze standing there with this shooting the flames around for some reason, and that gives Utah enough time to catch up to him. And then they're on a foot chase, and he's chasing Reagan. He's chasing Reagan, and it's a great foot chase. They're going through the alleys somewhere in Los Angeles. Reagan throws a boxer at Utah. I thought that was a nice touch. That
was another trivia question. You got it, man. You're on it.
I'm like, he throws a full-grown dog at him. So cool, right?
They did that humanely too. There was a whole. If you go to IMDb trivia, they have. Or no, wait, is it trivia? Where they kind of explain how they did that?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great chase. I mean, that whole sequence is pretty good because you're like 5 minutes into it. I mean, the whole thing lasts probably like 5 minutes. I don't know. I can't remember.
It's long.
You're into it, and you're at the very end. When Swayze gets away and Utah shoots up at the sky.
He hurts his knee.
Oh, yeah. Whoa, that was a long sequence. It doesn't hit you until the end, but you're just so into it. And the way they filmed it, I think helps with that because you're so immersed into the chase. You're either behind them running, or they're in front of them running toward the camera, or they're running on the side. I mean, it makes it really, the way they filmed that was really cool.
Yeah, they caused some collateral damage in there, busting through sliding glass doors and knocking fences down and whatnot. You're kind of almost expecting, like at the end of Ferris Bueller, where he's just all, smells good. Soup's on, as he's running through these houses. Did you pick up on that either?
No, don't get up. Don't get up.
Somebody just say something funny in there somewhere. But
so then they, so Pappas is pissed because, everybody got away. Which I was thinking, like, why wasn't there any backup, on that? Long enough chase, they would have had the helicopters out. They would have had all that, especially in LA. But
for sure,
that's neither here nor there. Yeah.
I think they were on their own on that one. They're just gonna, because it's like, what are the odds that they're gonna rob this bank out on this day?
Yeah.
But he was right. He said they boxed everything up and they're out of here. The summer's over. They need spending money. So that's a good point. And at this point, Pappas is pissed. You don't, when you shoot, you don't miss, all this. This is the first point where it's actually confirmed. And the night beach scene with the 4 surfers, the ex-presidents, and Rosie. They're the kind of the gang of 5 there. That it's confirmed that they are indeed the ex-presidents. That's the first time the audience is told. And it's over an hour into the movie where now we know for sure that they really are. If you hadn't picked up on it, they really are the ex-presidents. So.
Well, I wrote this down as something that I wanted to talk about, which was, at this point, there's about 45 minutes left of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole 45 from this point to the end is just one day. So, Tyler stays over and she finds his badge and gun, and that falls apart. Liar,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then he spends the rest of the night trying to get her back, calling her. And then in the morning, Bodhi comes with his gang. And now this is where kind of, because before this they had this little meetup at the beach, and they're like, he was an FBI agent, you should let me shoot him. And he's like, no, all this does is raise the stakes. And
Yep.
this isn't a game, Bodhi. I'm
Mm-hmm.
scared. And so it becomes this thing of, who's going to kind of admit first, because they know who he is because he didn't have a mask on. But now they're playing on the idea that, well, they didn't, they don't know. He doesn't know that it's them really, but he does.
And he can't take them down because they haven't committed a crime in
Right.
front. I mean, he can't apprehend
He
them
can't
when they
prove
show
it.
up at his door,
Yeah.
and they know.
Yeah.
The presidents know. He can't just arrest them. No, you robbed that bank yesterday. They're going to be like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Prove it. You can't prove it. You got to catch them in the act.
So then they take him skydiving, and they're
take
like,
him skydiving.
Shit, dude. Which he's nervous because he knows, he's like, do they, if these are the guys, then they know that I am an FBI agent. Which is kind of after the skydive, which is great. It's a great sequence. All the skydiving in this is great. It's fun.
Yep.
So then they go, and then they have this thing where they land, and they're getting their chutes off, and he's like, "Hey, Bodhi's like, hey, Utah, I got to show you something." And I guess they had kidnapped Tyler, and Bodhi's using that as kind of what is that?
An insurance policy.
Yeah, an insurance policy. That's right. And shows him, her being tied up to a chair, and Rosie has a knife, and he's doing all this other stuff, and tells him he's gonna gut her like a pig, and you have to help me get to this place, and if I'm not here by a certain time, then she's gonna kill her. So then this is
it's
the
really
Indian
ingenious.
sequence.
It's really ingenious plan too. It's like, this is how they're going to escape. They're going to fly to Mexico, and they're going to get away scot-free, and they're probably not ever going to come back. They can't come back and do this again next summer. They're, the FBI knows who they are, but they need to get out of here, and the only way they're going to be able to do that is by making Utah the scapegoat. He's in an impossible spot where he has to go along with them, and it's really I think that's it. He tells Utah, Bodhi tells Utah, I hate violence.
Yeah.
He's a pacifist in all this, and I think it's just really, his character it's a believable character. One, I think it's a really believable character where he's telling everybody. The other guys, Pappas had said in the beginning, the ex-presidents rob banks to fund the endless summer. Yeah. And I think for the other three guys, Roach and Nathaniel and Gromit, that is true. But for Bodhi, that's not what he's doing at all. He's in it for the spiritual side of it. And he's going to show those people out there driving around in their metal coffins that there's more to life. He's doing this as a message to society. Right. It's like a kind of a Tyler Durden kind of thing. Later on, we'd get kind of a Tyler Durden where, like, I mean, you're an anti-hero, really, is what this character is. And it's believable. You're kind of rooting for him.
Yeah. That's what makes this film great, is like, it evens the sides of, like, well, you can see why, you can see why this is happening. This is why he's doing it. And
there's more to it than just we're just going to get some money to party all the time. It's not what it is at all. Not for Bodhi. Yeah.
So, but then they rob another bank, and they force Keanu to come with them, and he doesn't have a mask, and there happens to be an undercover cop. But then Bodhi, and maybe you can speak to this because I couldn't really find a reason, but maybe it was because it was the last time they'll be able to do this. But they go to the vault, and so they spend a little more time. But there's an undercover cop, and he pulls out a gun, starts shooting everybody, but they have bulletproof vests on, and so Bodhi has to shoot the cop, and
he's never shot anybody before. You can tell.
Yeah.
So I don't know why they decided to go to the vault. I think maybe he just wanted to get Utah into this much more trouble
Yeah, maybe.
because
Yeah.
he's making Utah. He can't be an FBI agent after this. He's now
Right.
on security as with the fifth president. And he's standing there
Right.
with a shotgun in his hand, an unloaded shotgun in his hand.
Yeah.
Can't have you walk in there with your dick in your hand. So he's now an accomplice to
Yeah.
the ex presidents.
Yeah.
And we lose, who is it?
With these Gromit
No,
and dies.
Gromit dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, young Gromit dies.
And then the other guy, the Nathaniel, or not.
Nathaniel's shot, but he's got a bulletproof vest on. So he's shot. The guy who was
The guy with the shotgun?
Jimmy Carter's character.
Yeah.
3 people are dead. Only one of the presidents are dead, and it's young Gromit. He gets shot. The off-duty cop
That's
is
right.
killed, and the security guard's killed.
Okay, yeah.
Because he said 3 people are dead.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
You're an accomplice to murder. So now he's in trouble. They arrest him. They arrest, or the FBI comes in before.
But Pappas has something to say about that.
So on the way out of the bank, I don't know if the plan was to take Utah with them as they were escaping the bank robbery, but instead of that,
They knock him out.
Bodhi's so pissed that his friend's dead that he hits him with the butt of the gun, and Utah's knocked out cold. And the really cool shot of the sideways where Utah's his point of view, where he's now on it laying down as he's passing out from being hit in the face. Really good POV shot there that Kathryn did, and you see them run out the door and it fades out. And, and the FBI is now here, and they're reading Utah's rights because obviously he's in a lot of trouble for this. And Pappas comes in and tells Harp, "Let me write him in. I'll take him in. Send him down to black and white. Let me take him in," knowing that he probably knows where they're going, and they don't have a lot of time.
Right.
But Pappas isn't aware of where Utah is right now because he hasn't had time to tell Pappas that this is going down. Remember, they woke him up that morning, took him skydiving. They went from there to the bank, to the bank. And all this is happening, like you said, this is all happening on in one day. So Pappas says, he's like, takes his cuff off. He's like, "I know where they're going. We're going to Santa Monica Airport."
So you can't shoot him, you can't arrest him.
Yeah. You can't shoot him and you can't arrest him. And Pappas is like, "What the hell are you talking about?" They go down there. They're just about to take off. They're loading up all their gear, the 3 presidents that are still left. And Pappas sneaks around the backside, and Johnny shows up unarmed.
"You tell me where she is and I walk away. You walk away, I walk away." Just quotes. This whole movie is just like that, man.
So many good quotes, right?
Yeah. And this is where Pappas
shootout ensues, right?
Yeah. He bites the big one here.
And we lose Nathaniel is killed. Roach is mortally wounded.
Yeah.
And Roach kills Pappas, and they're going to take off, and he's not going to tell Johnny where he's going. And the pilot comes out and he goes, "Hey, I can't take you guys to San Felipe, man." And Bodhi's like, "God, he's told to tell him where we're going." So now they got to take Utah with them in this escape plan.
Yeah.
And off they fly. And they're, when we land, I'm going to let Tyler go.
Well, no, he calls Rosie on the thing. He's like, "Hey, Rosie, you going to be there?" He's like, "Yeah, well, I'm on my way. We'll be there." And he's like, "Let her go. You got what you wanted."
That's right.
"You owe me that much." And then they fly and put on their parachutes, and then James LaGrosse, what's his name? I forget his name. Goes first, and then
Roach goes first. He's hurt.
Yeah, and then he's like, "I know you want it, Johnny. I know you could taste it in your mouth. Taste it, but not this time. Adios, what does he say?
Adios, amigo."
Yeah, adios, amigo. And then, that's a great shot too.
It is a great shot because he did all his own. He did almost all of his own stunts for sure. Most of the surfing is Patrick Swayze, and all of the skydiving is Patrick Swayze because he was a fanatic. That's all he wanted. He was so hooked on skydiving. Yeah, he got paid to do his favorite thing in the world. What a life, right?
I know.
R.I.P. We miss that guy, but
man, yeah, we do. Yeah, so then so
now he's stuck in the plane. No parachute. What are you gonna do?
So he grabs the gun and he just jumps out, hoping to catch him. which he does in midair.
This is insane. This is insane.
Yeah, and so he ends up last minute, last second, pulling the chute. They crash to the ground. His knee gives out again, blows out his other knee, or maybe the same knee. I don't know. But
Right.
geez, Johnny, you are what does he call him?
You're a radical.
Radical. And then they get he gets reunited with Tyler.
Yep, Rosie lets him.
Roach is dead
Tyler
on the
go.
ground, so they stop and grab his money. They take off, and then it's Bill's Beach.
So-
Exterior.
That's kind of the end of what I would call the end of Act 3.
Yeah. And then you have like an epilogue. You know?
And then you have, that's exactly what I,
Yeah.
and then you have an epilogue, which is maybe one of my all-time favorite scenes in all of cinematic history.
Oh, yeah.
Because you and I will never stop quoting this whole scene. The dialogue in this scene is so freaking great.
Yeah.
Between the two of them. Everything that they say in this whole thing is so quotable. Where now we're in Bells Beach, Australia, and it's hard to tell when it is, but it's storming because it's the 50-year storm is here.
And this is where they filmed up in Oregon.
Oh, this is Oregon coast. That's right.
But it's for this movie, it's Australia. But it's you know, he sees him.
Utah comes walking up to this guy wearing a poncho, gives him the whole. He throws the mask. The Reagan mask lands in front of Bodhi, and Bodhi's not that shocked to see this.
Yeah.
He's kind of always, I was wondering when you'd catch up. You know, he's all Special Agent Utah.
And then and then they go through the where he trailed him and all that, and he goes, "You gotta wait." What does he say? You gotta go down.
Yeah, I knew you wouldn't miss a 50-year storm, Bodhi.
You gotta go down. You crossed the line, and people trusted you, and they died.
Yeah, it went bad, real bad.
Are you still surfing? Every day. Yeah, and then they have the fight, and then it's you do this so well.
Oh God! So anytime, and this is another moment where anytime, like somebody's lost, or if I'm lost, or I'm not sure what direction to go.
No, it's like if we were gonna go to the bar or something back in our old days. It's like if we're gonna go out and be like, well, just meet us down there. Well, where? No, just come with that. No, hey, there's cliffs on both sides. It's not like I'm gonna paddle to New Zealand. Oh shit! Yeah.
So good, and some of Keanu's maybe a little bit more wooden kind of. I don't know if you'd call it acting. Swayze's just such a pro through the whole thing, but
yeah.
You know, he's got him cuffed, right?
Yeah.
He's got Bodhi cuffed. He's caught his man. He's like, okay, man, okay.
Good for you. Got your man. Good for you.
Yeah. You know, you're a hero, and Special Agent Utah gets his man. But you know, I can't handle a cage, man. He's all, just let me get one wave. Just let me get one wave. Yeah. So
then he goes out and gets the wave.
Utah looks out and he realizes what Bodhi's actually saying here.
Yeah, because he drank the juice. He's got some juice in him. He knows.
He knows that, sure, you can go out and get one wave, but it's all closed out. You go try to surf in this and you get yourself killed.
Yeah.
And that's really the whole point, where he lets him go, and he lets him go.
You let him go!
Yeah. We'll get him when he comes back in. He's not coming back. And that's it. And then the outro to Nobody Rides for Free
by Rats.
Boom!
Bam! They stick the landing. They stick the landing. Cut to black.
Absolutely do.
Cut to black. Movie's over.
Absolutely.
And that's the great
crowd goes freaking wild.
And that's the great Point Break, dude. And that movie is just kind of, I don't know. It's like a time capsule. Not a time capsule, but every time I watch that movie, I'm just reminded of all of the early 90s stuff, because in the mid 90s, everything on TV became, sideways and quick edits and all this really lame fonts and neat, whatever. And it was right before that. It kind of fed into that, but it was just has its own style. And Kathryn Bigelow was just the right director for this because, I mean, I don't know, she just did a phenomenal job. And Kathryn, if you're out there, great job. All right, so then it's time for some trivia, huh? What do you
Sure.
say?
Yeah.
Or do you want to do? Let's do the Clay Thompson Game 6 award.
Clay Thompson Game 6 award. Go. You got a guy? You got somebody?
Let's see. Yeah, I have a couple, and well, not a couple, but I was gonna do. Okay, well, the first one I was just gonna do. I forget his name, but dude, totally gnarly, man. And then when they pulled up to the stakeout at night, he's like, "This is bullshit, man. This is bullshit." And I don't forget his name, but
yeah, I do too.
Every time he comes into the shot, even when Utah's late for his own bust, he's like, "God, what a flake!" But then they tackle what is his name, Sizemore. They tackle him like a pro.
Mm-hmm.
And even if his partner gets stabbed in the back a couple times, he's there to help his partner. I don't know. That's just mine. What's yours?
Nice. That's a great call.
Yeah.
And it's too bad we can't remember the agent.
Well, it was in my notes. I wrote it down, but I'm missing a page in my notes, and I have no idea where it went. So.
Oh man, I'm sorry. Well, my Game 6 Clay Thompson award goes to Tom Sizemore.
Oh.
As an uncredited role in this, he plays the agent Dietz, and he's in the movie for a minute and a half, maybe. You think I like this hair, man? My wife wants me to stay at Ramada Inn.
Nice tattoo you got there.
He liked it. He's like, you like that, Pappas? Fuck you. Yeah, he's like, I just got these. He's all, oh, you guys are real cowboys, huh? Real Batman and Robin. He's all, I finally got these jokers to play Wheel of Fortune with me and tell me who their supplier is.
And then you
cowboys show up.
Dude, that's a great one because I never knew he was uncredited. So for the longest time, I was like, I would always forget to look for his name in the credits.
Yeah.
And this last week, I was like, oh, he's not even in the credits. And then it's
he's not. And it's not like he was an unknown actor at the time. He's been in tons of other stuff. But I just wonder how his involvement came to be. I didn't really research it that much, but I'd be interested because he's an interesting character. That guy. I want to show him a movie about DEA agent, deep cover DEA agent Dietz, man. That guy sounds hella interesting.
All right, so let's do some trivia brought to you by our good friend Scott Taylor. Hey, what? Okay, I got 3 for you. Okay. So when Bodhi is introduced, they call him the Searcher, or they refer to him as the Searcher. So what is actually Bodhi looking for?
The ride, the ultimate ride.
Yeah. $1,000. All right.
Sweet, $1,000.
Yeah. How many blocks does Keanu Reeves break in order to tackle Bodhi into the water during their football game?
Oh my God. Is it 3?
5. Close. 5 blocks, and I think 2 of them were the same as the 2 before, but they could have just reused different takes.
He launches somebody.
Yeah, he breaks like blah, 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 blah.
One guy goes flying.
Yeah. And then the last one. Let's see. I'll use this. Let's see. This was Kathryn Bigelow's highest grossing film until what other movie?
Hurt Locker?
Zero Dark 30.
Oh, Zero Dark 30.
Bam. Yeah. All right. What do you got for me, buddy?
I don't know that I have any trivia. I was going to mention that just a little bit. We don't see a lot of bank robberies anymore, and bank robbery was a huge thing in the 90s, and they were a lot more frequent.
Yeah,
there were close to 8,000 bank robberies in the U.S. in 1990, which is the year they filmed this, and in 2023, which is the last year those statistics are available, less than 2,500. So it's really gone down a lot.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because A, there's a lot better security now. B, there's a lot fewer branches. I don't know if you remember back in the 90s, but there was a bank on all four corners, and now you have an ATM. That's what, there is not a million different banks out there, right? So it's just fewer banks to rob, and yeah. So I thought that was actually really interesting.
Yeah,
the
that
most
is
prolific bank robber of all time was a gentleman by the name of Carl Gugasian, who was known as the Friday Night Bank Robber. They estimate that he had robbed over 50 banks somewhere around $2 million that he had robbed.
Wow.
He would hit he was called the Friday Night Bank Robber because he would hit the banks just before closing time on Fridays, where he thought there would be the most amount of money either deposited. There's fewer people in there. And he started in 1973, wasn't caught until 2002.
Oh.
He was sentenced to 115 years in prison, but the judge reduced it to 17, and he was released in 2017 at the age of 69. So our boy Carl is still out there kicking it. And they've done documentaries on him. There was one called the Friday Night Bank Robber.
Okay.
But he wore a Halloween mask, some kind of scary mask, and the idea was to strike fear into people, because that's how you get the crowd. The people in there, you gotta strike fear into them so that they submit, and they won't. Nobody's gonna, I'll get you.
That's what Bodhi was saying at the end there. You confront him. See, that's the quote I don't know, but when he was talking to Utah in the back of the van going to the robbery, the last
it's a dog mentality.
Yeah, cool, man. All right, so final thoughts. You got any final thoughts for us there, Tobias Maximus?
I think I was gonna put something together for you. I think I do have a little something for you here. I was thinking, what would for my final thought, really, one of my final thoughts here, was this is one of those, we see usually the villains are the more interesting characters in a movie. All the villains are much more interesting than, Darth Vader's way more interesting than anybody else. Luke Skywalker's the hero. Nobody's favorite character is Luke Skywalker. He's way down the list. I mean, for Christ's sake, Boba Fett's higher up on people's list than Luke Skywalker. Boba Fett was on screen for like 14 minutes in 3 different movies. So that's really where we are sympathetic to the ex-president when he's describing that what he's doing is actually living. This is, instead of these people that are inching along. Sorry, my cat's freaking out because
that's fine.
About an hour past lunchtime. So I'm going to just end with that.
Okay.
But your final. Yeah, anyway.
Well, my final thoughts. Again, I'll just reiterate what we've probably just been saying the last hour and a half is that this is just a great movie. It's an all-around kind of really balanced movie. It's not heavy. And it's kind of, you can go for a ride and it's like a joyride. You enjoy it. Then the minute you're off, you're like, whoa, what was that? I would recommend this to anybody. And I give it, I give it a 10 out of 10. And I don't, by no means do I think this is a perfect movie. But I just mean in terms of enjoyment. You'll just there's nothing really that you can kind of say that it's, like you said, there's no slow parts in it, or there's no parts that really bog down the whole pace of it. It's just a great movie, and I love it, and I will recommend it to anybody. So that's my thoughts.
You're absolutely. There's no 2 hours long, lots of dialogue, and there's no superfluous information. Everything that they're saying, all the dialogue that's happening in this is all pertinent to the story. Whether it's the romance between Tyler and Utah, whether it's the connection between Bodhi and his crew, and Bodhi and Utah, and Pappas and Utah, and Pappas and Harp, and there's no throwaway lines in this. You couldn't. I would be interested to see what they edited out.
Yeah,
because whoever did the editing, I'm not missing anything.
You're right.
There isn't a little like, whatever happened to I can't think of anything that's missing where I'm confused by any part of it.
Well, I think
Carlos, Bud.
Carlos, you're fine, dude. It's fine.
Sorry.
We love the guests. We love
Okay,
cats.
good.
This is a cat loving
Sorry.
zone.
I'm sorry, pal.
But yeah, I mean, I think what was I going to say? They kind of hint at like, Tyler's parents died, and
Yeah.
so, but that's all you get is like they died. And I think movies nowadays would probably like go a little bit into that just to make her character a little more deeper. But that's not the point of this movie at all. It's not to be deep. It's just an action movie that cares about the action. And I think for its time, it kind of at the time, like I was saying before, skateboarding and all these other things were kind of the extreme sports. But then it's a movie about surfing, which you don't attribute to kind of any kind of crime, unless it's maybe graffiti or something. I don't know, especially back in the '70s. But yeah, it introduces this surfing as kind of an extreme sport. So it was great. I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Extreme sport. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah. All
I'm
right,
getting
cool.
into it.
Well, for those who are watching, thanks for staying with us.
Yeah.
Give us some comments, comment down below, give us a follow. We're still learning as we, how to do this thing, and we're having a lot of fun. So, Toby, you got any last words?
Welcome to SeaWorld, kid.
Sweet. I love it. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. And we'll see you again next week.
Yeah.
Take care.